Welcome to On Texas Football. It's time for a little Saturday conversation. We are literally hours from kickoff, Texas, going to Ann Arbor to play the Michigan Wolverines. It is the big preseason matchup for the Longhorns this year. No doubt about it, just like Alabama was a year ago or the year before that. Texas goes on the road. Rod and CJ, let's talk about it. Maybe the biggest news from this whole thing is the line. The line moved from 4 points favoring Texas, or 3.5, all the way up to 7.5. Midway through the week, it's kind of crazy that Texas is favored by almost more than a touchdown in some places over the defending national champions. Is it just me, or is that weird for you guys?
Mind blowing. Like, I can't believe it. It was at 3.5 prior to the start of the season, and then right after Texas beat Colorado State, right after everybody watched Michigan versus Fresno State, it seemed the line shifted and then got to 7.5, which CJ, you pay attention to this stuff more than me. I don't know how often you see a drastic shift like that in such a short time. Says that either Vegas or the public, they've made their mind up about Texas and Michigan, and they think Texas is going to win and win, in a commanding fashion, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, 7-point favorites on the road in the defending champion's house. I mean, you don't see that too often. What that tells me is, folks have a different perspective on Texas than I think they do Michigan. And I do think this line is fair, right? You look at Michigan and the defense, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But for anybody that watched that Fresno State game, what is that offense going to do to keep up with the Texas offense, right? The quarterback advantage very clearly goes to Quinn Ewers. The offensive line advantage in this game goes to Texas. You see the playmakers that Texas has at their disposal on offense versus Michigan advantage Texas. And now, of course, you got to look around and see how the defense kind of lines up there. But if Davis Warren can't move the ball through the air, I don't know how this game remains close. I just don't.
CJ, I was talking to you the other day, and one of the stats you brought up that I thought was so good. Michigan against Fresno State only completed one pass of 10 yards or more, and it was 10 yards. That's pretty revealing. That being said, you also had this stat. Michigan attempted 25 passes in that contest against Fresno State, but only 3 of them were play action. Yeah. Rod, you're a DB, and Michigan's going to come with more play action if they can get that power run going, and it's going to stress the DBs out at Texas a little bit. Is it possible Michigan was just playing possum a little bit against Fresno? I mean, Texas, it felt like did last year against Alabama, and Sark kind of unleashed what he had. You think maybe Michigan's doing that in this scenario?
I don't know. I don't see it because I'm really struggling to figure out how they're gonna have a vertical passing game. You mentioned the stat that they had one pass over 10 yards, and it was 10 yards. They also had an interception. They only attempted like 5 passes past 10 yards, and one of them was an interception. Loveland is the guy. I mean, that one past 10 yards, it was Colston Loveland, the tight end. They got, I believe, 10 plays of 10 yards or more versus Fresno State. 6 of them via the pass, 4 of those were to Colston Loveland. If you stop the run, and if they want to obviously if they want to generate any passes downfield or any downfield passing game, they do it through Loveland. So I would have a plan for Loveland, and I'd leave everybody else on islands. And my plan for Loveland would probably be move Jahdae Barron around and see if I can get Jahdae Barron matched up on him, or a Derek Williams. I don't know if I like the Makuba matchup or Taft matchup versus Loveland because he's big, he's pretty thick. But I want a longer, rangier, thicker defender, and Jahdae Barron would be it. He's your multiple guy.
I got a question for you before we move on. Your last-minute thoughts on this game, and then give me a score pick if you don't mind.
Last-minute thoughts on the game. I keep coming back to how's Quinn going to handle the pressure? It's going to be inevitable. Wink Martindale's going to bring it. How does he handle? Because I think they'll be able to neutralize your running game. I don't know if you're going to go up there and be able to pound the rock versus Michigan. So ultimately, it'll come down to the passing game. I think they're going to lead with the pass. I think your early down pass rate is going to be relatively high. But Sark's going to want to take his shots downfield. All right. When he gets the matchups, he's like, well, that's zero coverage or cover one. And then we know Wink Martindale, he's the blitz happiest, probably the most creative, pressure-oriented defensive coordinator at the college or the pro level. That's just what he does really well. And so when those two worlds meet, can Quinn deal with the inevitable pressure that Wink Martindale is going to create on those plays where Sark wants to get the ball downfield and he's got to hold on to a little bit longer? What's going to be, to me, the result of those? Because, as you know, and CJ, we talked about this. Colorado State only pressured him twice, but those were his two worst plays. So let's say Wink Martindale, let's extrapolate that and say Martindale gets 12 pressures. Are 6 of those going to be bad plays for him? Interception or a sack? If that's the case, that's a pretty good ratio if you're Wink Martindale.
What do you got to 5? I agree with all of what you just said. I mean, it's going to be that,
but I got Texas winning. I got Quinn showing up, and I got Texas winning 20. Ooh, man, I take it back. I 27-13 is what I got.
Wow. So big. That's a 2-score win for the Longhorns. CJ, what about you, bud? What do you think Texas comes out on this one?
Rod, you're lucky you went first there. I had to recalculate my score, but I had 31-13 Texas. Again, I just don't think Michigan can keep up scoring-wise against Texas, right? Texas is going to sell out to stop the run. If they stop the run, and that's a big if, but where does Michigan get their offense from? It's not going to be with Davis Warren. Is it with trick plays? Is it with Alex Orji? Do we know? I don't know. But first off, how big of a threat will Alex Orji be? Well, first off, he needs to be on the field, right? He had 9 snaps, 5 of them were designed runs. Everyone knows in that big house, in that Texas locker room, on that Texas sideline, when he's on the field, that ball has to go to him. And of course, you have to, protect the run against him beforehand. And you'd love to see him drop back to pass. You just absolutely would. Texas has too much playmakers at a skill position. Texas has an offensive line that will give Quinn enough time. I do think the questions coming into this week about the right side are they're reasonable, of course, to protect Quinn, but I just don't see Texas being shut out in this game. And if they get up early, I don't see a way in which Michigan comes back. So 31-13, I'm punching that one in.
Woo! You guys, y'all put me on the spot now. I know how Michigan's going to score. They're going to create short fields with their defense at times. Be that an interception, a forced fumble, good punts, because they do play good special teams, right? And give their offense a chance to move the ball in short fields. Then you can kind of just load up for bear and run, right? My final score prediction for this game, 20-17 in favor of the Texas Longhorns.
Nice.
20-17. I do not think I've said from the get-go that I think that the team that wins this game, guys, is the team that gets to 20 points first. I still believe that because I didn't think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I know you guys had a little bit different, not much, but a little bit. So I wanted to mention that. All right, before we go any further, we got to talk about some guys and what's going on in the rest of the SEC. Let's talk about Underdog Fantasy Sports, one of the best games out there right now. Get in the game. Football season is here. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy sports this season. How does it work? It's simple. Just download the Underdog app, go online, and it takes almost no time. Playing their pick'em game, I can make my picks and submit an entry in less than 60 seconds, or I can take all the time I want, dig even deeper, making up to 8 picks in a single entry. Underdog adds a ton of excitement to the sports viewing experience, especially for football, which is why I personally love it. And the best part is you can watch your progress in real updates throughout the day. Today, Underdog is hooking us up for the start of football season. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code ONTexas for a first deposit match offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick. They also have an additional site-wide Travis Kelce free pick that you'll be able to take advantage of up until NFL kickoff. Again, UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code ONTexas right now for a first deposit offer of up to $1,000 and 2 free picks if you count the Travis Kelce free pick. That's Underdog Fantasy, our choice and the choice for daily fantasy. We really enjoy that site, and thank you for your sponsorship of the Saturday Morning Conversation. All right, it's not a great slate of SEC games, in my opinion. So we talked beforehand, and we're going to go over a few of them that we thought were at least intriguing. Let's start with the other 11 a.m. game in the SEC on Saturday, Arkansas and Oklahoma State. The Razorbacks go to Stillwater. Mike Gundy's team favored by a touchdown, a little bit more than a touchdown. Arkansas coming off a good first game performance. They're really talking up his new quarterback as well as the offense overall under Bobby Petrino. I think, guys, this is the game we find out whether the Arkansas offense is actually legit or the team they played last year, Arkansas Pine Bluff, is just a really bad FCS team altogether. What do you think, CJ?
Yeah, I can answer that last question, Bobby. Arkansas Pine Bluff is a very bad team altogether there. But to your point, I mean, we will find out whether or not Arkansas will have a legit chance this season or not. You know, Taylor Green impressed week 1. I thought he used his legs very well. With that said, going on the road to Polk State, right? You know, they're facing a team that returned 20 starters from a year ago. Of course, Ollie Gordon's the face man, but they got a 35-year-old quarterback back there, veteran presence. He's been in college for forever. He's built for games like this at home. I think the home field advantage gives the Pokes an edge here. I like Oklahoma State to win this one.
What about you, Rod? You got a favorite there between old Mike Gundy and Sam Pittman?
I think both can be true, though, that Arkansas Pine Bluff is terrible, but also that the offense for Arkansas is much improved. I think it's a little bit of both there because I like the quarterbacks. Taylor Green, I believe is his name. Apparently, you know, the Bobby Petrino really liked him. Even coming out of high school, he was a big fan. And
first offer.
Yes, exactly. His first offer coming out of high school was Bobby Petrino. So I think that marriage actually may work. But I got Oklahoma State here. There's a lot of continuity returns for Oklahoma State. Head coach, OC, DC, starting quarterback returns, all the starting experience that my man CJ mentioned as well. That's why I like Oklahoma State, even in the Big 12, and I like them in this matchup too.
Hey, I got to go next to the next game. Oklahoma, one of Texas' main rivals, clearly, plays tonight against the University of Houston. Now, Houston did not have – I mean, Willie Fritz, the new head coach, did not acquit himself well in game 1. They lost big or unceremoniously to UNLV of all teams. Oklahoma favored by 30 points at home against Houston.
Wow.
Guys, am I wrong here that seems like an awful lot, or is Fritz just a guy that has to have his type of players to go up there? He gave Fritz, when he was the head coach at Tulane, gave Oklahoma all kinds of problems. Now, fast forward a year, and his team's underdog by 30. Yeah. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, that one I know U of H doesn't look good right now, but I think Willie Fritz is a hell of a coach. I actually think he's a good coach. So maybe it's going to take him some time. You never know how the transfer portal and NIL, you never know how those resources are at a school like U of H, even though they're now in the Big 12. Oklahoma rolling like that, and Oklahoma had a big injury too to their wide receiving core, I believe it is.
Farouk.
Yeah. So I'll still taking to cover that number. I don't know. That's a big number, but U of H must be really bad. But I'll take Oklahoma to roll.
I got you. What about you, CJ?
Yeah, offensively, you look at Houston's lineup and you say this team should be scoring more than 7 points against UNLV, right? You know, you've got guys like Joseph Manjack. He was a guy that torched Texas last year, right? You know, Jonah Wilson, one time committed to Texas out of the Houston area. Stephon Johnson out of DeSoto, and Donovan Smith, you know, another old quarterback, but was one of those preseason dark horse guys to rise up draft boards after this season. So where's the disconnect? And I think right now, when you go up, and if you don't have those answers right away when you get on the bus or the plane to go to Norman, you're not going to figure them out against that Oklahoma defense. That's the big question mark. 30 points is a lot, especially when you kind of consider Oklahoma's offense didn't have to do a whole lot to put points on the board, and they're still stagnant at times, in the red area. I still like Oklahoma to cover. I just think that defense is going to be suffocating. It was impressive week 1. I think it'll be very much the same story week 2.
Looking at some other games, this is not like I said, it's not a great week. Indicative of that, 4 SEC teams play the following teams: Nicholls State, Tennessee Tech, Alcorn State, and McNeese State. The Aggies have McNeese State.
Hey.
I mean, Georgia is favored by 50 in their matchup against Tennessee. I mean, this is one of the things I don't like about the SEC. Not that the Big 12 was necessarily any better, although having 9 league games kind of precluded some of these matchups.
That's true.
Or eliminated them. This is the one thing I don't like. I don't want to see Texas ever playing Charleston Southern. Unless we get to go to Charleston, by the way. That's it. We can talk about it, right? It's supposed to be happening in town. I hope, and hearing Chris Del Conte talk, guys, and speaking to him in person about it, he has no interest in playing an FCS team. He doesn't see that as something that the University of Texas needs to do. But apparently LSU, A&M, Georgia, and Vanderbilt think they need to do that. All right, a couple other SEC games worth mentioning briefly. Tennessee goes to NC State. NC State supposed to be a better team this year. Had a tough one the first go. Tennessee favored by 8. We'll see if their quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, I think I said that right.
Good job.
Is the guy that had a great game last week. We'll see what he does this week. South Carolina goes to Kentucky. Texas plays Kentucky, obviously, later. Kentucky favored by 10. And listen to this. They're favored by 10, and the line the over-under is only 45.5. So they expect a low-scoring game. That's pretty big. Another one I found interesting, just I don't think you could get two different universities. University of California Bears, goes to Auburn.
Oh, yeah.
4 different universities in those 2 guys. Auburn favored by 13. South Florida this year goes to Bama. Now, CJ, last year, we all know what happened. Basically, Bama went down to South Florida, and they did so after they played Texas and lost, did not play Jalen Milroe because they were openly auditioning other quarterbacks for the starting role. I think this is going to be one of those where Bama just puts the whooping on South Florida, in part because they want to show their old coach, Nick Saban, just how wrong they were from keeping Jalen Milroe out of that game.
Yeah, I think there's no questions who the Alabama quarterback is going to be here, right? It's going to be Jalen Milroe. I think he's going to come out, maybe with a little chip on his shoulder that he wasn't in this game a year ago. And 2, I mean, to look at what they were able to do week 1 in the new system under Kalen DeBoer, no reason for me to think that USF is going to slow that down to any degree. There's a lot of firepower in that Alabama offense still. And again, they've heard that storylines. It was only a 13-3 win a year ago, I believe. It was in the rain. There was a big delay in the middle of it. Alabama rolls easy.
Nice. Hey, Rod, I'm going to ask you this. Middle Tennessee State goes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by a 40+ again. This is cracking me up. Everybody they play, I was listening to Neil McCready and Gene Siskey that do the Ole Miss podcast earlier this week. They're 2 really good guys, real knowledgeable. They're convinced that Lane Kiffin's going to do what the heck he needs to do to get Jackson Dart
the Heisman
to New York and get him the Heisman.
I like that.
This is the second consecutive week they're going to be favored by 40+. They're pushing the envelope for sure. What do you think about Ole Miss and Jackson Dart? Do you think they're potentially for real this year? We don't know yet because of who they played, but still.
It would seem, at least now offensively, that he's got all the toys that he needs. And Trey Harris might be a Biletnikoff Award candidate too, the receiver for them. He's really talented. We know they did a lot of work, really kind of overhauling the defense and some key positions in the transfer portal. I think Ole Miss is a threat this year, man. I really do. I think they actually are a threat. Lane Kiffin actually is the one I don't trust. Lane Kiffin's kind of the wild card. It's like every now and then Lane Kiffin's kind of his own worst enemy. And I wonder still, even to this day, if, the guy that, hey, get your popcorn ready, if Lane Kiffin has, I don't know if the maturity is what I want to say, if he can not have this kind of self-destructive nature and get in his own way as a coach. Because this team right now is loaded. There's no doubt about it. I really like the Ole Miss squad.
Yeah, I like them too. They got firepower, you know. And anytime a team has firepower, and what they did in the portal on defense, pretty good. They gave themselves a chance this year, a real chance. I like that. All right, hey, before we finish up, we're going to talk about some national games. Colorado going to Nebraska. Got to talk a little prime action about that. I also want to bring up a game that not many people are thinking about. But before we do that, I want to make sure everybody knows what we're doing today. The Saturday Convo, that's this, sponsored by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Then you had Texas Tailgate. Thanks, CJ, for changing that up. The Saturday Convo at 7, Texas Tailgate at 9. Myself, CJ, will be live from Ann Arbor. Then we have the Watch with Us. Aaron Hogan starts that up at 10:45. Rod Babers will join, Bob Shipley, as well as Jerry Hamilton. And then we do the post-game live this week. Brian Robeson will not be with us because he's got to coach his son's Little League football team. Standing in for him will be Tony Hills. Rod and I will be alongside for that. So we'll have a lot of fun. Our friends over at Flight by Yingling sponsoring that post-game show. All right. Big games left on the schedule. I'm going to run these down for you guys, and I'm going to let y'all kind of pick and choose which ones you want to talk about. All right. Iowa State. Iowa all of a sudden found an offense when they didn't have Kirk Ferentz on the sideline. How ironic is that? Kirk Ferentz or his son on the sideline. That's everything, right? An early big one in the Big 12 also. Baylor goes to Utah. Utah favored by 14. I mentioned earlier Colorado going to Nebraska. This is a game that Colorado beat the pants off of Nebraska a year ago, right? I mean, beat the pants off them. Nebraska's favored by 7.5. Has Matt Rule done that much better of a job building a team in the same amount of time as Deion Sanders? I mean, that's a big switch. And then the last one, and this is interesting because it's a late night game, 9:00 tonight. Boise going to Oregon. Okay. Oregon, 20-point favorites. But this is the thing. This is where it gets interesting. A lot of people have Boise as the ad hoc entry of the power of the group of 5 schools. They think they're going to be the team that actually makes it into the playoffs over another, I don't know, a Southern Miss or somebody else that's in a lower level conference. All right, guys. Y'all, whoever wants to take a couple of those games, and then I'll finish with one final one that we got to talk about because it's got some intrigue to me. Who wants to take first? Rod, why don't you talk about Prime?
No, I'm talking about Prime. I can tell you why. You said Prime and Colorado with a 7-point dog in that game. 7.5. I think sometimes Vegas puts those lines where they're because they know at times teams just that people want to bet against Prime. Like most people that watch Prime, they hate watch Prime. They're watching Prime to watch him lose. They don't necessarily like Deion. So they hate bet too. So they know people will bet against Deion. So I think that's part of it. If you want to bet, they want to see Deion get blown out. Maybe that's why that line is. I will say that the Colorado skill positions on offense, then they got 3 NFL players. Jimmy Horn Jr., of course, Travis Hunter may be a Heisman candidate, but he's going to be a first-round pick, whether he's a wide receiver or corner, and you should play wide receiver. And, of course, they got a first-round quarterback. So, to me, they're going to be in every game in terms of scoring. I don't know if they can't win a defensive struggle because they don't have a really good defense. They don't have to win shootouts, but they do have the ability to win shootouts. I know Nebraska's got the really hot shot quarterback, Dylan Raiola. who's going to be, I think he's going to be a stud too. So this may be a shootout, and those are fun games to watch for Dion. So I think the ratings will be high because people like to hate watch Dion, but you might get a little bit of a shootout going on with this game too.
Yeah, I think you got to give Nebraska the edge defensively there, right? They looked pretty solid. Matt Rule's, fundamentals and discipline are kind of the two pillars of his programs. We saw that at Baylor when he was there. We'll disregard everything that happened with the Panthers, but he's put that back into Nebraska football so far. I love the quarterback matchup. Obviously, Shador is a first-round guy. Dylan Raiola, one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in a decade plus, right? Up there in the Arch and the Quinn conversations, he was protected very well by that Nebraska offensive line against UTEP. And again, I know it's UTEP, but if you give your quarterback time, he's going to figure out ways to make the plays. And hey, credit to Isaiah Neyor, 160 yards and a touchdown in his Nebraska opener as well. Other game I wanted to mention was that Oregon Boise State game.
Yeah.
And Ashton Jainty, the best running back no one's ever heard of, right? If you are deep in the woods of college football, of course, like the three of us, we've all heard of him. 6 touchdowns, 260 yards on the ground in the season opener. Heck of a football player. Might be the best running back in the country. Yeah, that's right. Even considering the guys up in Columbus and Stillwater right now. So keep an eye out on him because Oregon had a lot of yards. They got across the 50. They got to the red zone. And what happened? They didn't score a lot of points. That game was much uglier than it needed to be against Idaho week 1. It's going to be up to Dylan Gabriel to figure that out, to get into the end zone and use those weapons that we've talked about all offseason for Oregon to look like the team that's expected to compete for the Big Ten championship and a college football spot right away.
Oregon opened it up late, right, in last week's game. But at one point, they had only scored 14 points, and Dylan Gabriel was 30 of 35 at the time. I'm starting to wonder if that offense has some issues in the red zone potentially.
Yeah,
because that just sounds too crazy to me. 30 of 35, and you've only scored 14 points. How is that possible?
Yeah, and he's operating with high efficiency because I want to say his average time to throw was like 2.15 seconds. Ball was out quick, so they're in rhythm. I'm with you. I don't know what's going on there. It's interesting.
Okay, here's the final game that I want to give y'all a chance to discuss because actually CJ called it the I-35 showdown earlier, and I can't even believe I've been covering college football for 30 years, and other than when they played Texas, I don't think I've ever mentioned their name before. Texas State hosts UTSA.
Nice.
This weekend. Now, Texas's next opponent at home next weekend, a week from today, is UTSA. So that's why we want to talk about it. But here's the thing that really got me. Texas State is the favorite in this game. G.J. Kinney, the head coach at Texas State, Jeff Traylor, the head coach at UTSA. Where do y'all see this game going? Or are y'all just interested like I am to see what the final score is? Because I saw this matchup. I'm thinking I need to look at UTSA a little because they're getting ready to play Texas. And I'm looking at it, and then Texas State's favored. What gives?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You get two hotshot head coaches. Both are going to be in conversations for whatever the next opening might be, whether it's Baylor. Baylor. Yeah, that's the top of the list as well. But Arkansas as well. When that job comes open, Jeff Traylor's got some ties to East Texas. That's a hot spot for Arkansas recruiting. I think those are some jumps that you could certainly see both guys make in the next year or two whenever those jobs come open. It's going to be interesting. I like what Kenny specifically has done in Texas State to get that team where it needs to be in the Sun Belt or the Fun Belt, But no, I was really intrigued by the way that they've built each program, right? You've heard about, what is it, the 2-1-3 triangle of tough? Is that the area code for San Antonio?
Come on now.
Is it 2-1-2?
2-1-2's New York. 2-1-0, baby.
2-1-0. I'm the 2-1-4, so I don't know that. But the triangle of tough, man, they talk about it all the time. That's built into the UTSA program, Bobby. I'll learn my area codes for next week. It won't happen again. I like UTSA. Give me the dog points, and I'll take the money line there.
Okay, I got you. Rod B, you agree. This is kind of that game where we're watching because one of them, the winner of it probably becomes the odds-on favorite to be the next head coach at Baylor. If Dave Aranda doesn't turn it around in Waco.
Yeah, if you don't shock
agree with that? I mean, do we all agree with that? I mean, Kenny has some ties to Baylor because his dad played there. Jeff Traylor would be a really good fit at Baylor, and is apparently one of the schools that he might like to be at.
Yep.
I think the winner of this game is in line to be the next Baylor head coach if Aranda can't turn it around.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's weird because remember at one point Gary Patterson was working with them, and then he decided he wasn't going to work with them at Baylor. And I thought he was going. I was like, oh man, Gary Patterson might be the next guy in line there. And then that's not going to happen. But I agree with you. I think they'll definitely be front runners if Dave Aranda doesn't figure it out. But GJ Kenny's a star, man. He's a star. His offenses are modern, very progressive. I've studied some of his offenses. He had one of the biggest offensive turnarounds in college football. His first year there at Texas State, he lost a transfer quarterback, and everybody thought, "Oh man, it was going to be a disaster." Then he got another one there. I think his name's McLeod. I believe it's a Jordan McLeod or something. The guy they got, but he figures out a way to solve problems there, and they got some talent at running back. They got talent at wide receiver. They can score, and they got some guys on the edges defensively, on the defensive line too. That are some of the best players in the country, and he's been able to do it mostly via the transfer portal. And now we're starting to kind of get into some, traditional recruiting. So GJ Kenny is a star. Jeff Traylor, I love Jeff Traylor, but I think he might be missing his window. He loses to GJ Kenny, and that window for him being kind of one of those hot shot, fast risers, it may slow down a little bit for him.
Well, I'll tell you this much. He's making $3 million a year at UTSA. I'd be happily in that window. I'll just put it that way. And maybe that window also included, this is a big piece of it, his quarterback, Frank Harris, is gone. This is the first time he hasn't had that guy at quarterback. And let's be blunt, that was a big-time playmaker that gave even Texas problems, guys, when he came to Austin, as well as so many other teams. All right, yeah. Thanks again to our friends over at Underdog. If you are interested in playing fantasy sports, Underdog is the best place. Go to underdogfantasy.com. Use promo code ONTexas right now for a first deposit offer of up to $1,000 and 2 free picks if you count the Travis Kelce free pick that they've added. That's Underdog Fantasy, our choice and the choice for daily fantasy. Also, just a reminder for you guys, today we have not only this Saturday conversation, but we follow that up with the Texas tailgate at 9 o'clock. CJ will be on site thanks to South Point Dodge and Hargrove. Then we have the Watch with Us, Viking Fence and Flat Creek Estate, post-game live, coming immediately after myself, Rod Babers, as well as former Longhorn Tony Hills, who is a member of the last team to defeat the Michigan Wolverines. All right, that'll do it for this Saturday conversation, guys. Hope everybody has a good day today. I'm going to be wearing a jacket in Ann Arbor when I go outside. Y'all have a good one, guys. Hook 'em.